Okay, let's unpack this. I want you to do something for me, and I mean you listening right now. Seriously, just humor me for a second. I want you to close your eyes. Are they closed?
I am playing along here. My eyes are closed.
Perfect. So I want you to try and visualize a stadium. Let's go really big. Let's say Michigan Stadium, you know, the big house, that holds, what, a little over 100,000 screaming fans?
Yeah, right around there. And if you've ever been in a crowd that size, it is actually physically overwhelming.
Right, exactly.
Right.
It is a sea of humanity. Now, I want you to zoom out. Imagine 4,000 of those stadiums. Not 4,000. All side by side, stretching out past the horizon, literally covering entire states. And every single seat is filled. No empty spots anywhere. That is the scale we are talking about today.
It's hard to even picture.
It really is. We're
Yeah.
talking about a number that is, frankly, just hard for the human brain to actually process. 400 million.
It is a staggering figure. And I think when you visualize it like that, as physical bodies in a physical space, rather than just, digits on a screen, it stops being a statistic. It starts looking like a nation state.
We are, of course, talking about Mr. Beast, Jimmy Donaldson, because he has officially hit 400 million subscribers on YouTube. And I feel like we see these headlines all the time, right? Mr. Beast breaks another record, and we just kind of scroll past because we're completely desensitized.
Oh, absolutely. We just gloss over it.
It's like hearing the weather forecast at this point.
Oh.
Oh, it rained today. Mr. Beast gained another 10 million subs. Cool. But today I want to stop the scroll. I want to actually unpack what that number means, because this isn't just a guy making funny videos in his backyard anymore. This feels
Entirely different. No, you're right. And I am really glad you started with that visualization, because numbers this big, they tend to become abstract. We lose the humanity in all those zeros.
Yeah, we just see an M and a 4 and a 0.
Right. So let's contextualize 400 million immediately. We need to anchor this. That number is significantly larger than the entire population of the United States.
Wait, really? I mean, I know the U.S. is big. I live here, but...
The U.S. is roughly 330 to 340 million, depending on the census data and the projections you're looking at. So one YouTuber, one single channel, has a subscriber base larger than the third largest country on Earth.
That is insane.
Or if you want to look at it through a European lens, take the United Kingdom. Add France, add Germany, throw in Italy, and let's add Spain for good measure.
Yeah.
Combine their entire populations, you are still barely scratching the surface of Mr. Beast's reach.
Okay, pause. That is actually unnerving when you put it that way. We aren't really talking about influence anymore, are we? We're talking about a demographic shifting kind of power.
It changes the conversation entirely. We aren't just looking at a celebrity or an influencer. We are looking at a media entity that rivals the reach of global superpowers. This is unprecedented in the history of the internet. Actually, it's unprecedented in the history of media, period.
Because no single network ever had that.
Exactly. No single television network, no newspaper, no radio station has ever commanded a direct, subscribable audience of that magnitude.
And that is exactly what we're doing in this deep dive today. I'm your host, and with me, as always, is our resident media and tech analyst. And we aren't just reading a biography today.
Well, definitely not.
We've got a massive stack of sources here. It's a collection of documents and analyses that we are calling the Mr. Beast Blueprint. And our mission today is to understand the engineering, the psychology, and the economics that made this specific number possible. Because you don't get to 400 million by accident.
You really don't.
You don't just stumble into a following larger than the population of the United States just because you're lucky.
Precisely. Luck gets you a viral video. Maybe two, if you're really fortunate. Luck does not get you a decade of exponential growth. This is the result of a decade-long experiment in human attention. It is deeply calculated.
So before we get into the gears and the math of it, and we are definitely going to get nerdy today, I have to ask the question that I think is on everyone's mind. Is he the first real YouTube billionaire? And I just mean money, so we will get to the economics. I mean in terms of influence. Is he in a category of one?
I think that is the perfect emotional framing for this. We have seen big channels before. PewDiePie held the crown for a long time, and that felt like a massive movement. T-Series, the indie music label, they had the sheer volume. But this is completely different.
How so?
Well, PewDiePie was a personality, right? He was a guy you hung out with in your room. T-Series is a corporation. It's basically a repository for music videos. Mr.Beast is this weird hybrid. He is a personality who engineered a corporation around the algorithm. It feels different because the scale of the spectacle is different.
It's not just a guy in a chair gaming anymore.
Right. It's Squid Game in real life. It's buying private islands. It's giving away literally millions of dollars in a single video.
Yeah.
The stakes are so incredibly high that he has essentially created his own category of media. He's not competing with other YouTubers anymore. He's competing with Netflix. He's competing with the NFL.
So let's rewind.
Yeah.
Because it is so easy to look at the private islands and the millions of dollars and think, oh, he's just rich. He can buy views. Of course he's famous.
Yeah.
But the blueprint shows that this started in a very, very different place. Let's talk about the obsession phase, because looking at our notes here, this was not glamorous at all.
This is honestly my favorite part of the whole story because it destroys the overnight success myth so thoroughly. If you go back to the very beginning, to the early days of Jimmy Donaldson in North Carolina, it wasn't a high-tech studio. It was a teenager with a cheap laptop and a really bad microphone. It was what we call the early YouTube grind.
We're talking about a kid in his bedroom avoiding his homework.
Yeah. A teenager who was quite literally obsessed. He wasn't just making videos for fun like most kids do. He was studying the machine. He realized early on that YouTube wasn't just about being funny. It was a sorting mechanism. There are these crazy stories of him and a small group of friends, other small creators, who formed what they call a mastermind.
A mastermind. That sounds like a supervillain group.
It kind of was in a very nerdy way. They would get on Skype calls, if you remember Skype, and they wouldn't just chat about their day or play games. They were on these calls for 12 hours a day.
Wait, 12 hours? Doing what?
Analyzing. They would take a viral video, something that was trending that day, and they would dissect it frame by frame. They'd ask, why did this thumbnail work? Why did the video cut at this exact second? What was the brightness level of the image? Did the intro hook us in the first 3 seconds? They were reverse engineering the algorithm before anyone really knew what the algorithm was.
They were basically trying to crack the code, like hackers staring at the Matrix.
Exactly. It was the algorithm study phase. They treated YouTube like a complex math problem that could be solved. And we really have to remember here, Jimmy failed. A lot. He didn't start with the Mr.Beast format we know today.
Yeah, I remember seeing clips of his really old stuff.
He tried everything. He tried gaming content like Call of Duty videos. He tried commentary. He tried funny moments compilations. He even had this weird series where he just critiqued other YouTubers' intros.
Oh, right. I remember hearing about the Asian sticker intro or whatever that was.
Yes, he had these quirky, strange intros. He was throwing absolutely everything at the wall to see what stuck. But unlike most people who fail and then just quit, he took the failure as pure data. He'd say, okay, gaming didn't work. Why? Maybe the market is saturated. Let's try something else.
But then there was a turning point. And looking at our notes here, it seems like one specific video changed everything. And honestly, if you told me this video would launch a multi-billion-dollar media empire, I would have laughed in your face. It sounds like the most boring video imaginable.
You're talking about the counting to 100,000 video.
Yes. I remember when this happened. He literally just sat down in a chair and counted. 1, 2, 3.
For 40 hours.
40 hours. I cannot even sit through a 2-hour movie at the theater without checking my phone.
Well, the raw footage was something like 40 hours. He actually had to speed it up in post-production to fit it into a viewable slot, keeping it under 24 hours because YouTube had upload limits back then. But I want you to think about the psychology of that for a second. Why did that specific video blow up?
I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absurd. Who actually watches a guy count numbers?
Everyone watched it because it wasn't really about the counting. It was about endurance. It was a massive signal. It was a flag planted in the ground that said to the audience and to the platform itself, I am willing to do what no one else is willing to do. It wasn't high budget. It cost literally $0 to produce. But it was high endurance. It pioneered a genre we now call psychological endurance experiments.
It's kind of like watching a marathon runner or an ultra marathoner. You aren't watching for the running technique. You're watching to see if they collapse. You kind of want to see the suffering.
Precisely. It is a spectacle of human will. And this really highlights the core differentiator in his mindset, because most creators rely on motivation. They wake up, they feel creative, they make something. And if they don't feel creative, they don't make anything.
Right, the typical artist mindset.
But Mr.Beast operated on a pure obsession. Motivation is fleeting, but obsession is sustainable. Or at least it drives you way past the point where a normal person would just quit.
It's that creator burnout contrast we see in the sources. Most people hit a wall and stop. He just kept counting.
There is a really strong theoretical framework here called delayed gratification theory. Usually we apply this to personal finance, save your money now so you can buy a house 10 years later. But Mr. Beast applied it to human attention. He was willing to suffer through 40 hours of counting or reading the entire dictionary or saying Logan Paul 100,000 times for a payoff that might not come for months or even years. He was banking his effort.
And that leads right into the compounding effort model, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously he didn't just stop at counting.
No, he moved on to small, continuous improvements. This is essentially the Kaizen philosophy applied to YouTube. If you improve your thumbnail by just 1%, your hook by 1%, your lighting by 1% over the course of 5 years, those aren't just additive improvements, they become exponential. That counting video was the spark, but the fuel was this relentless mathematical obsession with making the next video just slightly better than the last one.
It's really interesting you mentioned the math of it, because that transitions us perfectly into the next layer of the blueprint, the science of retention. Because eventually he stopped counting and started building these massive, crazy spectacles. But the underlying mechanics of those spectacles are just cold, hard data.
They absolutely are. If you look at his channel today, it is a literal masterclass in media analysis. Let's just break down the CTR, the click-through rate.
This is getting the click.
Yeah.
Which is half the battle, right?
I would argue it's way more than half, because if nobody clicks, the best video in the entire world doesn't even exist. It's just you shouting into the void. Mr. Beast essentially turned thumbnail design into a psychological weapon.
Okay, let's unpack that. What exactly makes a Mr. Beast thumbnail? Because we all know the face. The eyes wide, the mouth open. It's almost a complete meme at this point.
It is a meme, but let's look at why he does it. It is highly specific. First, we are talking about color theory. If you look at the YouTube interface, whether you use the white background or dark mode, it's very neutral. It's all gray, white, and black.
It's pretty plain.
Mr. Beast found out, through testing, that specific hues, like neon cyans, bright magentas, high contrast yellows, they physiologically draw the human eye because they do not exist naturally in the user interface. He is literally hacking your peripheral vision as you scroll.
So he's basically using digital highlighter colors to scream, "Look at me."
Exactly. And then there is what the sources call the verification principle.
The verification principle, what's that?
The thumbnail makes a visual promise to the viewer. Let's say the thumbnail shows Jimmy standing next to a literal mountain of cash. That is a promise. The viewer clicks on that, expecting to see that massive mountain of cash. If the video starts and it's just Jimmy sitting in a regular chair talking about the cash, retention drops instantly.
Because they feel lied to.
Exactly. The brain feels tricked.
Yeah.
So Mr. Beast ensures that the very first image you see in the actual video perfectly matches the thumbnail. It verifies the click. It tells your brain, yes, you are in the right place. The cash is real.
That is weirdly specific. But it totally makes sense. You don't want to feel clickbaited.
And then there are the emotional triggers we mentioned. Notice the facial expressions in his thumbnails. It is never just a neutral, calm face. It's extreme shock, intense terror, or overwhelming joy. Evolutionarily speaking, we as humans are wired to look at faces that are displaying high emotion. If you see someone looking absolutely terrified, your caveman brain instantly goes, what are they scared of? Is there a lion? I need to look. He hacked our basic biology.
So he hacks your brain to get the click, but then he actually has to keep you watching. And this is where the hook engineering comes into play.
The first 5 to 10 seconds are critical. In the media industry, we look at retention graphs. For most YouTube videos, you see a very steep drop right in the first minute. It looks like a hockey stick pointing down. People get bored, they click away to something else. Mr. Beast's goal is a perfectly flat line. He wants no one to leave.
How does he actually do that, though? Because I've noticed his videos start immediately. There's no, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe.
Exactly, because that is dead air. That is an opportunity for your brain to get bored and leave. He starts with the payload immediately. We'll say, I just bought this private island, and the last person to leave gets to keep it. Boom. You are instantly thrust into the narrative. He cuts out all the breathing room.
But, this brings up a bit of a debate, doesn't it? And I see this running through our notes here. Is this storytelling mastery, or is it just retention manipulation? Because sometimes I watch his stuff and I honestly feel overstimulated.
That is the core question media analysts are asking. A critic would look at this and say it's manipulation. It's basic operant conditioning. He's dazzling the brain with incredibly fast cuts, sometimes every 2 or 3 seconds, and loud sound effects so you literally cannot look away. It's a dopamine drip feed. It's basically like shaking a shiny set of keys in front of a baby.
That's a little harsh, but I get it. But a fan would say no. It's just really great, fast-paced entertainment.
Right. A fan would argue He is respecting my time. He's cutting out all the boring parts. And to be fair, that is exactly what he claims to do. He says his goal is to give you the most entertainment per second possible. But from a media literacy standpoint, we really have to acknowledge that every single second is calculated. It is not art in the traditional sense of expressing a soul or letting a quiet moment breathe. It is engineering. It is designed from the ground up to maximize a single metric, which is watch time. It's a Jenga tower where he has strategically pulled out every single block that isn't absolutely necessary to keep the whole structure standing.
So we have the obsession phase and we have the intense science of keeping eyeballs on the screen. But you can't build a 400 million subscriber empire on just willpower and flashy thumbnails. You need fuel for this machine. You need money. And the economics of Mr. Beast are, well, they're honestly baffling.
The money strategy is really where he diverged from almost every other creator on the platform. Most YouTubers, when they finally start making real money, they follow a pretty standard path. They buy a nice car, they buy a big house in LA, they start saving for retirement, which is, the logical, sane thing to do.
But Jimmy just put it all right back into the videos.
All of it, every penny. This is the reinvestment loop. For years, he was actually making really decent money. We're talking six figures. But he was living in this dumpy, rundown apartment with barely any furniture because every single dollar he made went straight into the budget for the next video. He treated his YouTube channel exactly like a high-growth tech startup that completely refuses to take a profit. Amazon did this for years, right? They reinvested everything to capture market share. Jimmy did the exact same thing with attention.
I remember hearing these crazy stories that his mom actually had to manage his bank account for a while because he would literally drain it down to zero just to buy props or give away cash for a video. She had to actively stop him from going broke every single week.
And that ties into risk scaling. As he grew, the bets just got bigger and bigger. He'd say, okay, I spent $10,000 on this video and it made $20,000 in AdSense. So next time I'm going to spend the full $20,000. And he just kept doubling down over and over. He was basically playing poker, but every single time he won a hand, he pushed all of his chips right back into the middle of the table for the next hand.
It's terrifying, though. I mean, imagine spending $1 million on a single video. If the algorithm changes or if it just flops, you are out $1 million. That is not just risk. That is potential financial ruin.
That brings us to the production economics aspect of the blueprint. He reached a point where he was regularly spending traditional TV budgets, millions of dollars per episode, but he was getting a return on investment, an ROI, that traditional TV executives literally dream of.
Yeah.
Because unlike a TV show that airs once and maybe goes to syndication, his YouTube back catalog keeps earning money forever. A video he made 3 years ago is still generating thousands of dollars in revenue today.
And this must be exactly why sponsors trust him so implicitly. I feel like Honey or Feastables or some VPN company is embedded in every single video he makes.
Well, think about the alternative for a brand trying to advertise. You can go buy a TV ad during a popular sitcom. You hope people are watching live. You hope they don't skip the commercials or look down at their phones. It's a massive gamble. Or you can just give Mr. Beast the money. You know for a fact he is going to get 100 million views. It is guaranteed viewership. And because he has that massive sponsor budget, he can make the video even crazier, which brings in even more views. It is a perfect self-reinforcing cycle. The money creates the moat.
The money creates the moat. I really like that phrase. It basically means no one else can compete because no one else can afford to blow up a real train for a 15-minute video.
Exactly. He priced everyone else completely out of the market. If you want to compete with Mr. Beast in 2026, you don't just need a good camera and a funny personality. You need the GDP of a small island nation.
Okay, so he's got the money, he's got the science and the data, but he is still just one guy. And at some point, you just run out of hours in the day. You cannot edit, film, and plan everything yourself, especially at this astronomical scale.
And this is exactly where we transition from Jimmy the creator to Mr. Beast the company. This is the team and systems part of the blueprint. There was a very specific moment, what the sources call the bottleneck crisis, where he realized he was either going to completely burn out or the quality of the videos would drop. He simply couldn't do it alone anymore.
It really is a startup, isn't it? It's not just a guy running a YouTube channel.
It is a full-fledged corporation. He built an operational structure that mirrors a massive television studio, but it's much faster and way more agile. Take the writer's room model, for instance.
I honestly didn't even know YouTubers had writers' rooms. I thought they just kind of turned on the camera and did crazy stuff with their friends.
Most do, but Mr. Beast doesn't. And it's not like a standard sitcom writer's room where they sit around writing jokes or dialogue all day. They are brainstorming massive concepts. They might pitch 100 different ideas just to find one single diamond. Ideas like, I spent 50 hours buried alive in a box. Or, I survived a plane crash simulation. Or, laser tag with real military fighter jets. They have to churn through an incredible volume of ideas to find the concepts that perfectly fit the algorithm's demands.
And I've heard a lot about their testing culture. They don't just guess what will work.
No, absolutely not. It is entirely data-driven creativity. And this is honestly one of the wildest parts of his entire operation. They will sometimes Photoshop thumbnails and write titles for videos that do not even exist yet. They will take these fake thumbnails and show them to thousands of people in online surveys just to see which ones they would actually click on. They validate the idea before they ever spend the $1 million filming it.
That is wild.
That is pure Silicon Valley startup methodology. It's MVP testing, minimum viable product.
So they literally know a video is going to be a massive hit before they even turn the camera on. They aren't hoping for a viral hit. They are manufacturing one in a lab.
To a very high degree of certainty, yes. And inside the company itself, there is this intense internal competition. The rule is that the best idea always wins. It doesn't matter if you are the senior executive producer or a brand new intern hired yesterday. If you pitch the idea that the data says will go viral, that is the one they shoot.
It sounds incredibly intense. High pressure. Not exactly a chill, relaxed place to work.
It is very intense. It frames the entire operation as a high-performance machine. It is not a relaxed creative studio where you sip artisan coffee and wait for the muse to strike you. It is a literal assembly line of virality.
So we have built this incredible machine. We've conquered the U.S. market entirely. But 400 million subscribers, you just don't get that from English speakers alone. There simply aren't enough of them on the platform. The math just doesn't work out.
And that is the absolute key to the next phase, the global domination strategy. This is where Mr.Beast left every single other creator in the dust. He looked at the data and realized that the vast majority of the world, billions of people, do not speak English.
So he started the multi-language channels, like Mr.Beast in Espanol, Mr.Beast Brazil.
Yes, but he didn't just casually add subtitles to his existing videos. Subtitles are a passive experience. They require effort from the viewer to read. He went for full, massive localization.
What is the real difference there? Isn't dubbing just, dubbing? And honestly, dubbing usually sucks. The lips never match the audio. The emotion is always totally off. It feels like watching a badly dubbed kung fu movie from the 70s.
That is exactly what everyone in the industry thought would happen. But Jimmy didn't hire cheap automated translators. He hired actual performers. For example, in Japan, he hired the actual legendary voice actor for Naruto, one of the most famous anime characters in human history, to dub his voice.
No way. He actually got Naruto to be Mr. Beast.
Yes. So think about that. When a Japanese kid watches a Mr. Beast video, they don't hear some clunky, awkward, bad translation. They hear a voice they already know, they already love, and they already trust. They hear a literal hero. It creates instant cultural familiarity. It completely removes the friction of watching foreign content.
That is such an incredibly smart move. Using established, beloved talent in those local regions to bridge the cultural gap.
And then, once you have those localized channels, you layer on the shorts funnel strategy.
Right, the YouTube shorts, TikToks, Reels, all the vertical video stuff.
Exactly. He floods the entire digital ecosystem with short-form content. These 60-second clips get billions and billions of views. Think of it like giving out free samples at a massive grocery store.
Okay, I am hungry, so I like this. Go on.
So you're walking down the aisle, right? You see a little sample station. You take a tiny piece of cheese on a toothpick because it's low friction. It's totally free, it is right there in front of you, and it takes exactly 1 second to eat. That little piece of cheese is the YouTube short. But once you taste it and realize you really like it, you are statistically much, much more likely to go buy the entire block of cheese. That block of cheese is the 20-minute main channel video. Mr. Beast is essentially flooding the entire global grocery store with free, highly addictive samples.
And the algorithm sees all of this massive activity across all these different platforms.
Yes, and that creates algorithm stacking. Success on one platform or in one specific language signals to the master YouTube algorithm that this content is universally valuable, which compounds his visibility everywhere else. This exact strategy allowed him to deeply penetrate markets in India, Brazil, Japan, places where traditional US-based YouTubers were virtually unknown.
So he is everywhere. He is in every language, on every screen, in every country. But, and here comes the really heavy part of the deep dive, you do not get this astronomically big without casting a pretty dark shadow.
Mm.
You don't get to 400 million subscribers without people asking some very hard, uncomfortable questions.
No, you don't. And the criticism and controversy section of the blueprint is absolutely vital for us to cover.
Yeah.
We cannot just sit here and praise the massive numbers. We have to impartially look at the actual cost of this scale.
Let's start by talking about the big one, the ethics of wealth.
Mm.
The specific videos where he goes around and cures people.
What critics often refer to as the poverty porn argument.
Exactly. Videos titled like, I paid for 1,000 blind people to see again.
know.
Now, on the surface, that sounds amazing. He used his wealth to genuinely help people. He literally gave them their sight back. How can anyone possibly criticize that? But critics argue that it feels kind of icky. It feels very dystopian.
The core of the criticism is about the commodification of charity. The question being asked is it truly ethical to use highly vulnerable people, people who desperately need expensive surgery, people who are flat broke, as content for a video? Are we helping them purely because they need help as human beings, or are we making them dance for the camera so the channel can sell more ad space?
It's the concept of charity as spectacle.
Yes. And we need to present the counter-argument here, which is defenders always use, and it is a very utilitarian view. They argue, who cares about the underlying motive? 1,000 people can see now. If he didn't make that YouTube video, those 1,000 people would still be completely blind today. And realistically, that is a very valid point. But from a broader societal perspective, it raises serious systemic questions. It highlights a phenomenon that some sociologists call philanthrocapitalism.
Philanthrocapitalism. Break that down for me.
It's a system where we increasingly rely on the extreme benevolence of the ultra-rich to fix systemic societal problems. Critics argue it creates this dangerous feedback loop where society stops demanding that our governments or our healthcare systems actually fix things like preventable blindness, and instead we just sit around waiting for a rich YouTuber to do a lottery. It effectively privatizes the basic social safety net, but it makes receiving that help dependent on whether or not you are camera-friendly enough to be featured in a viral video.
That is really heavy thought. It essentially turns basic human survival into a digital game show.
Exactly. And beyond the ethics of the charity, there's the ongoing creativity versus spectacle debate. Does having a massive, practically infinite budget actually kill pure creativity?
I can definitely see this point. When you have infinite money, you don't really have to be clever or innovative anymore. You don't have to write a good joke. You just buy a tank and blow something up.
Right. The whole soul of early YouTube was, here is me and a cheap camera, and I have to be genuinely funny or interesting because I don't have anything else. The soul of modern Mr.Beast is, here is me and a military-grade tank. Some critics argue that the high-gloss production has completely replaced genuine human connection. Has the medium of YouTube lost its authentic soul in the relentless pursuit of scale?
And we really can't ignore the systemic issues his success has spawned across the platform, what the blueprint calls the copycat problem.
This is a huge issue. If you open up the YouTube homepage right now, what do you see? You see 1,000 Mr.Beast clones. Everyone is doing the exact same shocked face in the thumbnail, using the exact same neon font, and using the exact same... I survived 50 hours in X titles.
It has totally homogenized the
Yes,
platform. Every single creator looks like a discount Mr.Beast.
It really has. He created a metric standard that everyone else feels they absolutely must follow if they want to succeed. And critics point out that this severely stifles experimental, weird, quiet, or niche creativity. Because the algorithm, which has been heavily trained by Mr.Beast's success, now demands incredibly loud, incredibly fast, and incredibly expensive content. It is what analysts call the Beastification of YouTube.
And finally, on the criticism front, there is the very real sustainability question. Can a human being actually keep this relentless pace up forever?
We have actually seen him talk about this in various interviews. The
Yeah.
sheer stress is unimaginable. Managing a company of that massive size with tens of millions of dollars on the line every single month, while simultaneously having to maintain this public persona of constant, unyielding, high energy. It is a perfect recipe for catastrophic burnout. So the question is this model truly sustainable for him personally, and is it sustainable for the broader creator ecosystem? Or will this massive attention bubble eventually just burst?
That is the billion-dollar question right there. Which perfectly leads us to our final reflection for this deep dive. We have looked at his past. We've broken down his present empire. Now let's look at the future. Can someone else replicate this?
This is the replication debate that everyone in the media industry is having right now.
Because if I am a kid starting a channel today, right now, in 2026, can I be the next Mr. Beast? Can I just follow this blueprint we just laid out and reach 400 million?
The short, honest answer, probably not.
Why not? You just gave us the entire blueprint.
Because the digital environment has fundamentally changed. Jimmy Donaldson was a product of a very specific time in internet history. He rode the massive wave of YouTube's own maturation. He grew up right alongside the algorithm. But now the algorithm is mature. The barrier to entry, and ironically this is partly because of the standards he set, is astronomically high. To compete with Mr.Beast today, you almost need a Mr.Beast-sized budget on day one just to get noticed.
So the ladder he climbed, he kind of pulled it up right behind him.
In a way, yes, he did. But that doesn't mean there won't be massive new stars in the future. They just won't look or act like him. They are going to need a very different set of skills to break through.
The blueprint actually lists 3 mandatory skills for the modern creator navigating this landscape. What are they?
First is data literacy. You absolutely have to understand the numbers. You cannot just be an artist anymore. You have to be an analyst. You need to understand retention, click-through rates, and audience demographics. Second is pure storytelling. And I don't just mean making content, I mean actual narrative structure. You need to know how to tell a compelling story that grips human attention and doesn't let go. And third is resilience, the sheer mental toughness required to endure the grind, ignore the inevitable hate, and survive the brutal competition.
And, I think we are currently seeing a really interesting shift in the capital versus creativity war.
We definitely are. For a very long time, capital won, the big budget always won, but we might finally be seeing the pendulum swing back the other way. Audiences are getting exhausted. They're tired of the intense gloss and the constant screaming. They're starting to crave real authenticity again. The next Mr. Beast, or whoever takes that mantle, might just be someone sitting quietly in a room talking directly to the camera with absolutely zero budget, just because it feels real and grounded.
That is a deeply fascinating thought, that the ultimate antidote to the 400 million subscriber billion-dollar spectacle is just silence, or actual human intimacy.
Exactly. The attention economy behaves like a giant pendulum. Mr. Beast pushed it as far as it could possibly go toward maximum stimulation. The basic laws of physics and sociology suggest it has to eventually swing back.
So as we wrap up this massive deep dive into the blueprint of the world's biggest digital creator, what is the final thought here? What does this all actually mean for us, the people watching the screens?
I think we all need to ask ourselves a very serious question. If one single person can engineer and command the undivided attention of 400 million people, are we currently watching the absolute peak of the creator economy? Or are we just watching the very beginning of a terrifying new era of media consolidation, where individual YouTubers become the new Disney or Time Warner? Because Mr. Beast isn't just a channel anymore, he is a global network. He is a massive studio. He is a multinational conglomerate. And living in a world where a single algorithm-obsessed individual holds that much unchecked cultural influence, well, that is something we should all be paying very close attention to.
That is a lot to process. From a kid counting to 100,000 in his bedroom to a guy essentially owning the eyeballs of the entire world, it has been a truly wild ride to unpack.
It certainly has been.
Well, that is it for this deep dive. I hope you all learned something today, or at least look at your YouTube homepage a little differently next time you log on. We will catch you on the next one. Stay curious.